So, well, first of all, good afternoon to all of you, and we want to thank you for joining us. My name is Linda Wires, and I'm the project coordinator for IWMM. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to what is the first of a two-part training webinar that is going to guide you through the use of our new online database, which, as I think most of you know, has been developed as a node of the AKN. We've been working on this development of the database for quite some time, so we're really excited to be actually presenting to you the database today. We noted in our earlier announcements about this training that portions of the database have been developed in stages, so we're doing a phased rollout. Today's training is going to focus on an introduction to the IWMM AKN portal, registration for IWMM projects and users, and the data entry sections. The second phase of the training is going to focus on reporting and informal decision support tools. And that particular training is going to be given next year in late January or early February. So we'll be sending out an announcement again to announce that training. So as Tim has noted, we're recording today's webinar, and we're going to post this on the IWMM website next week. And we're also going to post a detailed documentation, either in the form of a PowerPoint or a Word document, that's going to provide screenshots, and it'll help you. It'll help walk you through using the portions of the database that we're going to show you today. Currently, you can also find IWMM's data sharing policy posted on the website in the data management section. So after today's training, you'll be prepared to start actually using the IWMM online database to enter your data as of Monday, December the 14th. So I'd like to now introduce you to Dr. Tim Jones, who's been trying to get this PowerPoint in order and having some technical problems. He's going to be bringing you today's training. Tim is the science coordinator for the Atlantic Coast Joint Venture, and he's a really integral member of the IWMM science team. He's been involved with the project since its inception, and he's been involved with the development of the database since the initial planning for the database began. So he's been the lead on the development for the database for the last 14 months. So with that introduction now, I'm going to hand this over to Tim, and over the next 2 hours, he's going to walk you through use of the database and provide you with an opportunity to ask questions. So with that,
Linda,
Tim, it's all yours.
Linda, could I ask you to sort of monitor the chat box and be sure nobody's having a problem getting onto the WebEx portion?
Sure. Let's see if I...
If you go up to the green thing up at the top of your screen and drop it down and click on chat, it should pop up a window. Or there should be somewhere on the right-hand side maybe of your screen, there should be a chat window.
Hey, Tim and Linda, this is John, and I will assist with that as well.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I don't see the...
okay, thanks, John.
To do that. So, John, if you'll handle that, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask one last time before I get started. Has anyone not been able to join the WebEx portion of this webinar? Great. All right. All right, so today I just plan on walking you through our online database system, what we're calling the IWMM application, or that's, I guess, what Point Blue refers to it as. Point Blue was the developer of this. They're the organization that's developed most of the avian data centers that you're probably regional avian data centers that you're familiar with. Just going to walk you through how you register to get access to our portal, how you set up a project, how you enter bird data, vegetation data, how you can create management action plans and report on those, and then just sort of give you an update about what's coming in way of reports, and then hopefully there'll be plenty of time at the end of the day, at the end of the session for questions. So as I just mentioned, the online database was developed through a contract with Point Blue Conservation Science out of Petaluma, California. Our database is a node of the Avian Knowledge Network. As part of that, users have to register via the AKN as users, and then they'll can be added into the IWMM portion of the AKN. We have data entry section of the portal, which allows you to enter your bird survey data, the annual vegetation survey data, and also allows you to create what we call management action plans, which is used in our more advanced decision support tools for users, and that lets you describe what you're going to do to your various units, and then lets you actually log whether you accomplish those actions. As Linda alluded to, the reporting portion of our database, which we'd hope to have available at this time, is not quite done. That's going to be finished sometime in January, and then we'll be coming back with another training on how you can actually go in and develop reports, run some of our reporting tools that we've developed along with Point Blue, and be able to include those in your annual reports as needed. As with any good database, since the data are your data, you can extract your data that you enter into our system and get those back out for your use. And then also, depending on what level you set to share your data, those data may be available to others, and we'll be sure you understand the sharing if you're not familiar with the AKN levels. A few definitions. We're sort of in the process of changing some of our terminology. So for those of us that have been working with IWMM for a while, this is sort of marks a sea change in how we refer to our sites and units, because we've sort of had to adopt the AKN nomenclature, so I thought it would be good to run through some definitions here. As those of you that are working with other monitoring programs that are already part of the AKN, your individual collection of either survey areas, transects, point counts, mostly what we would refer to, at least in the Fish and Wildlife Service, as a refuge, is called a project. That's a collection of survey units that you're responsible for collecting those data on, that are being managed as a single unit. That's what we used to call a site, but we now call a project. And then under that are the survey units, where you actually are the individual management units where you're collecting the actual sampling data. As I alluded to in the last slide, the AKN has this concept of a data sharing level. The AKN has their specific levels that go all the way from raw and clean up to a data sharing level of 5, and I'm going to show you what those are in a minute. And then I'm going to show you IWMM has adopted a slightly different data sharing levels and policy, and I want to be sure you understand those before we get into the actual database. A few more definitions. User roles, they're basically two users that we're going to refer to throughout today's presentation. First of those is the project leader, and that is a IWMM participant who can assign management units to projects, download and review field observations, grant other users access to their specific project, and also assign protocols to the sampling units. And obviously they are able to do anything within their project that the next level, which is a researcher, can do. And that's basically, the researcher it's generally the role that's going to, they've been out collecting the data and now they're going to enter the data. I mean, it's possible that it may be somebody that did not collect the data that is performing the researcher role. but I would assume most of the folks on the phone are probably going to fall into the researcher category, although it may very well be quite a few project leaders on the call. Requesting access to the portal is, to the IWMM portal, is pretty easy. The web address is there in the first line, www.pointblue.org/IWMM. If you don't know whether you're a registered AKN user, the easiest way is to enter your email address. If that doesn't work, I'll show you what happens. When you go to that address, you're going to see this login screen, and you'll know by this that you're at the IWMM portal. Click login. I'll use my personal email address, which is not a registered user, and then hit enter, and it comes back and tells me the user account was not found. Follow the link at the end of that error message, and it will take you to a page where you can actually register as a user of the AKN. It's going to ask you for your name, your email address. You have to provide the system with a password that you're going to use, and then you can fill in additional information. Anything that is starred is a required field, so please fill that in. And then you have to prove to the system down at the bottom that you're not a bot trying to sign up for this. So type the letters in that you see in the reCAPTCHA, and then click on register at the bottom. And then that will actually, all that does is send a request to the AKN that you're requesting access to the AKN, and they will approve you as a user, and hopefully you have a relationship with the project leader that you're working for, and they'll be on the lookout to assign you to your specific project. If that doesn't happen, feel free to contact Linda or myself, and we can actually get you linked up to your project as well. Okay. So the next step in all this is to know whether your project is actually in the system. If you've been participating in IWMM or any of the other monitoring programs that are underway in the IWM and the AKN, then you should have your project set up. Otherwise, if you know that you're set up, you just go back to the URL I gave you, go to the portal, and you can start entering data. If your project isn't set up, then we've got a little bit more work to do, and we have to go through a project setup phase. You'll have to register as a user, which I just showed you how to do. If you don't know, if you're pretty certain your project's not registered, there are a couple of ways that you can really easily confirm that. For refuge staff, you can contact Lisa Carter in Fort Collins. And if you're definitely doing this as an IWMM project, you can contact Linda or our science coordinator. That position is currently vacant. In the meantime, you're welcome to contact me, and at the end I'll have mine and Linda's contact information for you. And you're just going to request that your new project be created in the AKN system. Talking a little bit about projects within the AKN system. Projects sort of have a hierarchy to them, and that's what I've displayed here, is that you have a project, and let's say this is Clarence Cannon National Wildlife Refuge. That would be the upper level, and maybe they're participating not only in IWMM, but also doing point counts. They may also be participating in the marsh bird survey. So the second level that is referred to within the AKN as a study area are really just sort of an intermediary level that act as containers for containing the sample units for each of the monitoring programs at the project that's occurring at that project location. Okay, so then the study area has protocols assigned to it and sample units, and those sample units could either be polygons or points if they're transects for the point count. So if you're a project leader, you sort of have to remember that under your project, you're going to probably have study areas and then sample units under each of the study areas. And that what AKN calls study areas really you should probably think of as more monitoring programs that are occurring at your station. And Lisa's able to help you through this. Linda and I can help you through this project setup, and Point Blue is also available to help with this setup as well. When you're setting up a project, you do have to provide spatial information on your sampling units, and that requires the project leader either to upload some form of a GIS file, either KML, KMZ, or an ArcGIS shapefile, or you can go in through the system and actually digitize boundaries over imagery directly within the system. One point, if you're uploading data, just notice that I can't spell, the datum for your GIS upload should be WGS 84. Okay. And this is what the screen looks like to get you set up. I'm go in here and sort of show you how.
Can you go back one, please?
I can.
Thank you.
Did you have a question about that slide? Or just taking notes?
No, I'm just trying to write it down. Thank you.
Okay.
And just so you know, this will be, this entire PowerPoint that Tim's going through is going to be posted on our website, so you can revisit it at your convenience.
After I fix all the spelling errors.
Yeah.
All right, so I went back to our portal. I'm going to now log in here. And I sort of short-circuited there, but basically I came over to this projects menu and came down here to manage units. And we have, right now I'm just working in a test project that we've been using for beta testing called IWMM Test. So you can actually see hopefully everybody can see the hierarchy over here in this gray box. IWMM Test. We have 3 study areas, East Unit, Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge, and a West Unit. So if we wanted to add sampling units to our East Unit, we would highlight East Unit and then come over here and select online form initially. And we're going to, because we're concerned about IWMM management units, we're going to select that as our type of sampling unit. And we'll click on Enter. And then you have to actually provide a name, some information about these sampling units. So we can call this first one North Pond for lack of anything else. And what we are going to recommend in setting this up, assuming that a lot of you were former IWMM participants, we had our site codes and our unit codes. We'd like to continue with those formats. So when you're setting up sampling units, we have a specific format that's a 2-letter state designation. And since Sacramento wasn't a previously participating site, and I don't think we have any in California, I'm pretty certain I can assign it 001. And then each management unit under that gets an additional 2 to 3-letter code designation passed. This is the first one I'm entering. I'm pretty safe in being able to assign it AA. Here's where you can go and digitize area. If you didn't want to digitize it, you can just skip that step. And I'm not sure this is going to work. Our internet's been really slow here at Patuxent. Oh, yes, it is. All right, so it's just your typical Google Earth view. You can zoom in, scroll around, and get to whatever level you need to digitize. And I will apologize for those of you that are from California. I know nothing of California. And then you just start drawing your polygon on the imagery, and we will leave it at that. Double click on your last point, and you can say keep it, and now we have a polygon assigned to that unit, and then we want to be sure to click on save. And now if you look back over here on the left, where we had an empty study area, we now have a sampling unit under it called North Pond with our IWMM unit level code assigned to it. Okay. If you wanted to add a KML file or a shape file, you would just follow along on the appropriate button. It's going to ask you once again select the correct sample unit. We're interested in IWMM management unit. And then you choose file. Okay? Since I don't have one ready for that, I can't follow this one out completely. But it's pretty straightforward for uploading the files. Okay. As I mentioned, earlier project leaders can manage units. You can add units. You can go in and edit the spatial boundaries if they're not quite right. You can't delete units because there's always going to be data. If you've entered data with previous units, you can't delete them, so we don't let you delete them. But you can add new ones, and you can change their names, update the names as needed. Project managers can also assign researchers. That links a user that's registered with the AKN to your specific project. That provides that user access to your project. And as you can add people, you can also revoke their access to your project. Project leaders can also set the appropriate sharing level once data has been entered. That These sharing levels really determines the extent to which others can see your data in reports and have access to your raw data. Remember, as the data owner, you always have access to all your data you're putting into the AKN. We can go in and look at how to assign researchers to projects. And this is, so when you go into this type of, into the project leader application, a lot of times you're going to see all of the AKN projects that exist through any of the Point Blue data centers. And so it's a quite extensive list. So if you actually click in here and I want to go to IWMM test, I can just hit I on the keyboard and it will take me to the I's in the project list. And there's my IWMM test. And now you can see the list of folks that have been assigned researchers. I can add one, but to add somebody, they have to have already registered as a user. So I don't know, let's see, who's on the screen that's who's online that's an AKN user that I can pick on. Nobody going to admit to being registered with AKN?
Jenny Barnett.
You see your Barnett B. Would help if I did that right? Right here? No, that's Jane. Sorry,
You're almost there. Go up with your mouse.
We can see it.
Barnett and Jenny with a J-E-N-N-Y. There.
Right there.
Okay. There we go. Sorry, the text is so small and distorted on my screen. I'm having a really hard time reading this. Okay, so I'm selecting Jenny, and then I have to give her a status. I'm going to make her an active researcher as part of IWMM test. She's going to be a researcher, so I'm not going to make her a project leader. And then I just hit save. I don't know if there's a way, let's see. Does that help on making the font larger?
Yes.
Helps me anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and for all the users out there, if you find the plus and minus sign on the right-hand side of your screen, you can blow it up, the image on your screen.
Yeah, it probably helps, though, for me to blow it up on my screen before I project it to everybody. So
that's good.
Sorry about that. All right, so that's all there is to adding a researcher to your project. Now Jenny's part of IWMM test, which is a really messy project to be assigned to, Jenny, so thank you. Okay, data sharing levels. So data sharing levels controls how others see your data, know about whether your project is part of AKN. And as the project leader, you're responsible for determining what level you're going to set that in and making sure that the data flow process moves from raw, which means the data have been initially entered, into the clean stage where they've been reviewed, and then to the appropriate sharing level after that. I didn't move those at this point. So we'll talk a little bit more about the sharing levels here specifically in a minute. But once again, you access these tools through the, I gotta do this every time, through the project leader menu option. And you can go in and actually set the levels for any of these. But we'll get back to what the actual levels represent in a few slides. Okay, so let's talk about the portal just a little bit. This is what the home page, the landing page of the portal looks like. Obviously, you'll know you're at IWM when it says Integrated Waterbird Management and Monitoring up in the upper left. We have our menus right here for moving around through the system. And then eventually when we get our reporting work, when you log in for a project, it should pull whatever observations from the last, right now it's set for 7 days, that may or may not be, we may have to put that back for the last month or something. And then also it will generate random migration curve for your data and show it to you. And that's going to change for whatever units you have and for periods. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so it's probably not a slide that you expected to see in this training, where not to enter data. I assume some of you on the phone may be using AKN to manage other monitoring programs that you're conducting at your location, your station. And if you are, then you may be going through the Midwest Avian Data Center or one of the other data centers and actually entering data through what Point Blue calls their biologist application. That is a way that you can get to IWMM. If you go through and try to use their generic data entry forms for IWMM, it's not going to work correctly. We've built in a lot of error checking to try to reduce data entry errors that the biologist app does not have. So we really would like you to come in through the IWMM portal. And to try to make that a little easier, if you actually went in through the biologist, went to a project that was participating in IWMM and went to enter data, you would actually, they've added, you'll see a IWMM portal link pop up here on the right. Please click that to enter your data. I think if you go in and do it through the biologist app, you will not be able to save all of your data. It doesn't understand some of our data fields in our database. So with the portal, we've tried to introduce, or Point Blue's tried to introduce consistent navigation across the application to ease you moving through the stages of data entry and data management. So in the upper right-hand side is where you will find navigation. Before I forget to mention it, right in this section, you'll see what project you're working on. If you're a member of multiple projects, you can actually, there's a drop down that will work, and you can actually select which project you want to work on during this session. If you're only assigned to one project, that drop down won't be active. Okay. Part of the consistent navigation is that once you get down and you finished entering your bird data, and now you want to go back and you want to enter your management action plan information. There wasn't an easy way before to do that, so we wanted a way for you to get back to the home screen and move to other sections. Also, if you were a project leader and you got into project management, there was actually no good way to get back to the IWMM portal. Point Blue has actually framed all of their project leader and some of the other tools within this consistent navigation framework. So we think, having Linda and others and I, having worked with Point Blue over the last 14 months, we were constantly getting down somewhere and couldn't get back to the beginning, and all that's gone away, and I think the navigation now is pretty consistent. I can always get back home to the portal page whenever I'm sort of getting lost in the system. The hierarchy in the navigation framework, obviously the top level entries are data entry, downloads for downloading your data, reports for running reports, projects for managing project level management actions, and then there's a user menu over on the far right, which just is a little silhouette of a person, and that's where you'll find your log out menu item under that. And anywhere you go, you will have access to any of these, so you could have finished entering vegetation survey and jump directly over to downloading report data without having to go all the way back to the top level. Okay. Oh, I had a slide for that. So once again, just to reiterate, right here on the right, you're going to have an area where you can determine what project you're currently logged into. As I said, if you're a member of multiple projects, it's always good to double check that and be sure you're working on the right project and not entering data into the wrong project. All right, so now let's look at how you would enter your bird survey data. This is probably what most of you came here for, and it's taken me this long to get to data entry. When you first go into the bird survey, which we're going to go in there live in just a minute, and I'll walk you through some of this, you have to select what type of observational protocol did you use. We let you do an area search, aerial, there's a flush count protocol, and there's an area plus flush count. I think that's right. We can check that in a minute, but there are several different protocols you can select from that are IWMM. Under the environmental site condition, there's only one, so that should automatically pop up as the IWMM site condition protocol. The site conditions that we ask you to record every time you go out to do bird surveys are weather, water, habitat, some interspersion metrics, and vegetation height metrics, and then obviously there's the bird count component. What species you encountered, the numbers, but if you went out, you didn't see any species, you actually have to click a button that you save the environmental conditions without any bird encounters. All right, so we're going to go and look at how we enter bird data now. So this has taken me, I'm still in this IWMM test project, and I'm in the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge study area, and these are my sample units. Let's say we just completed a survey yesterday or the day before on Area 10B here. We'll click on that, and now we get a page that shows you the visits to Area 10B. Everything in our online database application has these quick tips, and you can click on those, and it gives you some text about what that references in the database. And sometimes they don't say quick tips, but the little I's in the black boxes are your quick tips for every one, and they have a little X out here to close them. Sorry about that. Didn't know we would find an error there. So this screen is divided into two areas. This top part references creating a new survey unit visit. And then in this lower section, it shows you your previous visits where you've already entered data. So we've entered data. Well, we've got two pages worth of data for this site. A lot of this refers to our beta testing, and you can see the date that the observation occurred. You can get information on the total count, start time, end time, what protocol was used, and then the sharing status of those. Okay, we're going to go ahead and create a new visit here. So we have to select our protocol. The ground survey is our default one, but you can choose an aerial survey, a flush count, a ground and aerial survey, or a ground-based count. We'll do a ground-based count. And as I said, there's only one IWM-specific environmental condition protocol, so that should be selected by default. And then we will click Start. If I could ask everybody to mute their phones, please, if you don't have a question. I am recording this, and we want to have as clean a recording for people to view in the future as possible. Thank you. So once you click Create, you get to the new visit, and this is where you start entering data. You get calendar quick picks for calendar. So let's say we went out on Tuesday. We started at 0800, and we finished at 0915. So we can add that information. The data sharing is always going to be set to raw as you're entering data. You will be listed as the observer. You can change that if you're adding somebody else's data. If you're entering somebody else's data, you can pick from the researchers that are assigned to this project. We have fields like we had in our Access database for how many other observers were there, and if there were other observers, then we just ask you to type their names in this box. You have an area where you can add notes, and then the next section is where you're going to record all of our environmental conditions. So this is where we're going to really get into, this is sort of where our applications differ from a lot of the generic AKN applications, is that as you enter data into these fields, there's error checking on the back end going on that ensures that the data you enter match what's allowable for that particular field. Okay, so we'll enter a starting temperature. Let's say it was relatively warm. Where you see the little drop-down arrow, you get a drop-down box. If you know the numeric code for these, you could enter those just by typing them. Visibility, remember, visibility is the percentage of the survey unit that you can actually see during your survey. And those values, I know the protocol believe it's written, John and Linda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, suggests that all sites you should be able to see more than 70% of the site. Well, we've actually modified that. If you actually have sites where you're observing less than 70% of the site, this field now accepts that. So this has to be a percentage between, I think, 1 and, is it 1? I think it's 1 and 100%. So we can put 35% there. And I'm just going to go through this type of drop-down box where it says select one or more is going to stay open after you make your first selection, because you can actually select 2 tide stage readings. Some of our fields have a not applicable option. If you select not applicable for salinity measure, then you're actually required to type an NA into the actual salinity value field. Gauge level, we can enter that information. Then we can select the units, whether it was feet and tenths, feet and inches, or meters. We'll say feet and inches. And then we have to enter our water depth. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm just going to enter some data really quick to move us through. We have to select an estimation method, whether we got that from a bathymetry map, water gauge, ocular assessment, or other method. Percent ice cover, too warm for ice. Blood duration, and then we have to tell how. So all of this is detailed in the protocol handbook. So I'm just going to go through here and continue entering obviously made up data. All right, so now I've got all of our site condition fields entered from our visit 2 mornings ago, and we keep scrolling down, and this is where we can start entering our bird observations. So you're presented with an initial 20 rows. You have a little button down here where you can add an additional 20 rows at a time. So a couple of things. The data entry is stipulated on the 4-letter ABA codes. If you don't know those, there is a search the species database lookup here. We have restricted the species that can be observed to be inclusive of all water birds within U.S. That we consider part of the IWMM, and so you won't be able to enter robins or other sundry species. So we've sort of really restricted and tried to keep you from entering non-target species. So we can enter leaf sandpiper. Once we put the code in, it shows us the full name, and we can put our counts. And we can keep doing that. If you're setting up a new project or a new study area, or you come across a species that has not been encountered before on that survey unit, you won't get, let's see if I can think of a code that maybe, so if I enter a large turn, I wasn't sure which turn it was, but it was one of the larger turns, and so we have a code for unidentified species. You don't get the type ahead, so you don't know that that's the right species, so you might have to go up and use the search species database to be sure that's right. The next time you come back and you enter a large turn for this site, now that when I save it, it'll actually tell me what LGTE stands for. All right, so that's all we saw. We're going to come down here and we're going to click Save All. Now, if you notice, we have, well, it shows up on my screen as pink. I don't know what color it's showing up on the webinar, but there's an error message up here at the top of our screen. All right, it says site condition, water depth, fields must sum to 100. So I actually caused that to happen on purpose. So basically, what I entered was 10, 20, 25, 45, 52%. So this water depth, open, the habitat cover, and the height categories all have to add to 100%. So for any of our automatic error checking that's going on in the background, once you click Save, if our conditions aren't met, or if you're putting in a date that you tried to put in December 8th, 2016, get an error condition, and you're going to get a message up here telling you which field or fields that you have to go back and fix. So we can actually say, well, I goofed there. And now I should be at 100% there, so I'll come back down and try saving again. Obviously, that's not the right code for unidentified large turn. We'll just change it to unidentified fallow rope. I should not do that, right, Linda?
I unfortunately can't remember what the code is. You could go up and show them how to select, go to that screen.
Yeah, let's do this. That's a good idea. All right, so I'm looking for turn. So it's UNLT. So now I can go back here and correct that and save. All right, so now I got a message that said, nice job, environmental conditions, bird data were saved, and it automatically brings you back to a review or edit that survey condition. So basically, you're looking at the data you just entered. So we're looking at Area 10B for the 12/8/2015 visit. Notice that there's this big button at the top that when you're done proofing it, that they want you to press. If you'll notice right now, our data sharing level is set to raw. The other thing that's important to note is wherever you have this vertical blue bar, those are fields that you can double-click on and edit. So if I got my start time wrong, I could just automatically go here, double-click it. Well, we actually started at 8:05 instead of 8. All right? And then we scroll down. We're going to be sure that what we entered matches what's on our field data sheets. And everything looks good. So I'm going to go back up here and say I've proofed my data entry. And now we're taken back to the original Bird entry screen. And if you look, this top row now is our 12/8 visit that I just entered. We saw 111 individuals, and my data sharing status has changed from raw to clean. All right. So the importance of changing your data from raw to clean is that during data entry, data stored in one database when it's entered and in the raw format and does not move into what Point Blue calls their data warehouse, which stores all the data that's going to be used for reports. If you want to download your data, you're pulling from the data warehouse and not that first transactional database table. So it's really important that the data always gets moved at a minimum out of raw to clean. And even at clean, nobody other than the project leader and anybody working at that project will know that those data exist. All right? All right, now let me go back to my presentation here and see where we were. Yeah, we want to be sure that as I was saying, we want to be sure that we review what we entered for quality assurance, quality control purposes. The biologists should review those, what they just entered against their field data sheet and mark them as clean. Once each visit is marked as clean, then it's the project leader that should set the appropriate sharing level. As a program, since the IWMM project really is relying on the fact that people are willing to share their data, we are asking you to at least clear your data to a minimum level of 2. So what do these sharing levels that I keep alluding to refer to? These are the AKN sharing levels. If you search for AVEN Knowledge Network on the internet, you'll find their page, and if you go to data, they actually have a page that I just took this text from. They start at the lowest level where the raw data, where it's unreviewed, unedited data, you've entered it off of your data sheets. The only people that know those data exist are those that have access to that project, the project leader and researchers assigned to that project. The next level up is clean. The data's been entered, it's been reviewed by the biologist, and it's ready to be potentially shared with others. At this point, it moves from that first database entry table into the warehouse so that it's actually archived for longer-term use. The other sharing levels, you have restricted, which means your data is not discoverable, not available to visualizations, are available to third parties. They can't find that you actually are participating within the AKN. We are really encouraging everybody to move beyond that level. Level 1 means that people will know that you are collecting IWMM data or other data, but that there's only very general information about the data set made available, and the data themselves are not. Level 2, some of the data is used in visualization and summary tools. Level 3 is where all your data is available, is visual in all their visualizations, and the full data set is available, but they have to actually request the data directly from the project leader. And then all the way up to level 5 everybody knows that your data is there. They don't have to ask you for their data, and they have direct download rights for your data. So I also alluded to the fact that IWMM has a slightly different policy about this. So at the request of the AKN, we have developed our own data sharing policy. This policy is available on the IWMM website as of this morning. It outlines your rights as data owners. It outlines how we as the IWMM project will be using your data. And it also notes that by contributing data to this database, you're agreeing to the sharing policy. We tried to keep it fairly simple. It's a one-page document, and basically it goes through and talks just a little bit about what goals of the IWMM project are. It says that I'm contributing data gathered using the IWMM protocols to our database. It tells you that as the owner, you're able to download all of your contributed data as a comma-separated text file at any time. It says that you're contributing this data and that you're going to set the sharing level for us. But this is where we start to deviate from AKN standards. IWMM has decided that we are going to start using data at level 2 in our reports. Given that IWMM relies on the fact that we're all contributing to a common goal and that the purpose of this is to share data and look at local level patterns and larger level patterns, it doesn't make sense for people to not have access to these data in our reports. The other way we differ is that the IWMM science staff, and we're using that term now since we don't have an actual science coordinator, but this really means hopefully our science coordinator, when we get that position filled, will have access to everybody's data that's set at a sharing level of 2 or greater. So anywhere from 2 to 5, we have access to your data to use in outside analyses. Okay. So it's good for you to review this, and just remember that by entering data into our database, that means you're agreeing to this sharing policy, and if you use data from IWMM in any publications, this policy actually lays out what we would like to see as a citation for those data. Okay. Okay, and as I said, those are live right now, correct, Linda? On the website?
Yes, that's correct, Tim. And if you just get onto our website and go to the data management section under protocols and forms, you'll find this data management paragraph and a link to the PDF laying that out.
Yeah, I thought I had that. I thought I had hot linked that over to our website.
If you don't have the website, it's just IWMMprogram.org. It's very simple.
Well, it helps if one can type. So then you would just go to our protocols and data forms link. And scroll down.
It's right there in that data management section, Tim.
Right. So right at the bottom of the data management section, there's a link, sharing policy for data owners and contributors. And then that's where you'd be able to click on that, and you'd be able to, you get a copy of our sharing policy. All right. Okay. Let's see, what time, where are we, Linda, time-wise?
We have 45 minutes left.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't take a break, so hopefully everybody can hang in there for a little while longer. Reviewing data, I will try to speed this up. I think we've gotten through a lot of the nitty-gritty. Go back in, like you're going to enter bird survey data. We're going to focus on that lower bottom part of the screen now and review data. Sort of showed you how to do that. Let me go back to that page for just a second. If I can find the right, I got too many tabs open here. Here. All right, so this is the one I want. So you're back here. You want to review again. Let's say we want to go back and we forgot to move this observation from 1970 into clean. You can come over here and just click on the dates, and that will take you into where you can proof those data. So now we've got that January 1st, 1970 observation or visit actually now in the clean state. Let's take maybe a couple of questions right now. If there are any questions about the bird entry portion. All right, great.
If there's no questions, I just wanted to make one very quick comment, and which was when Tim showed you the bird survey data form, the visibility field, he noted that you can enter values less than 70%, but we just wanted to let you know that those data that come from units where you could see less than 70% of the unit won't be included in the larger scale analyses that we do with the data. So I just wanted to let people know that.
Thank you. I meant to say that. I appreciate you catching that, Linda.
Sure.
All right. Vegetation survey. This is where you enter your annual vegetation survey data. Remember, it's conducted right after the end of the growing season, and it's just a rapid assessment protocol that's laid out in the protocol framework. So just sort of like the bird forms, it looks a little different when you go in to add a vegetation. You don't get the add a new vegetation survey at the top like you do with the bird visits. It's actually down at the bottom after your list of previous vegetation surveys for your project. Once again, there's why is that not letting me go there? We'll just go there now. Sorry, thought I had all these linked to the right page. But we can go here and we can select vegetation surveys under our data entry navigation menu. We're there. Remember, you can look up here. We're still working in IWMM test. All right. And we can add a new vegetation survey. This, like the bird survey, has automatic error checking built into it. Okay. So we can pick December 8th. It's a pretty late vegetation survey. And let's say this one takes longer. So we have to assign a survey unit to it, our observers, and then when we're estimating the percent of the unit that's near a tall edge, you actually have to provide an estimation method for it. Also, when you estimate the percent of emergent vegetation, you also have to supply a estimation method for that as well. So remember that both of those require an estimation method. And once again, the visibility is the percentage of the survey unit that's visible during that survey, all right, or from your point. Then down below is where you actually enter your plant species. You can just start typing a name, and it should bring up pick lists that match those. So these will be by scientific names. Correct, John?
That's correct. We use the National Plant Database, USDA.
And then we enter a percent cover, and it requires you to pick a head size category, small, average, or large, or not available. We'll say average, head size, density, medium, and then you have to do a species assessment method. So we actually entered the unit, and then we can actually save the vegetation survey. Can't see if it's actually thinking. Okay, don't know why that's not saving. Linda, can you still see my screen? Have we lost internet here?
No, we can still see your screen. I don't know why it's not saving.
I don't either. All right. That's frustrating.
Well, it'll save when you guys go to use it next time.
Right.
Some little glitch here, but.
Yes, and we are also, when you encounter little errors like this, please let us know so we can, you can actually go down here and submit feedback directly to Point Blue if you encounter what you think is an error, or you're more than welcome to contact me, and I think that goes for Linda as well, correct?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So anyway, you should be brought back to this page after you save that survey. I know they've been messing around with our IWMM test project, so I'm going to assume that that save error is probably related to that. Like the bird data, we want you to come back in and do the QA/QC procedure and edit, review those data and edit those. Two ways to do that. You can either click on the dates on the left, just like we did in the bird survey, or you can actually come over and click on the little pencil icon on the far right. The proofing button is not quite as big, but this is a raw entry. And that's interesting. It looks like that's the one I just entered. So it saved part of it. It just didn't save the species information down here. So we had an error with that. Can you jot that down, Linda?
Sorry, Tim, I was on mute. Yes, I'll have that written down.
Okay. All right, so now we've proofed that data entry, and now we've moved that into the raw category and since I'm project leader, I'm going to go ahead and set this to level 2. And now that should be now shared as a level 2.
Yeah, Tim,
All right.
we had a question in the chat box for that very thing. Folks want to know how they could save their data at which level, and you just showed that for the vegetation. They might have been asking about the bird count as well.
Okay, I can go back and show that if people want to see that.
I think that'd be great if you did, Tim.
All right, so we're going to go to the data we entered on from our December 8th visit. And remember here, we've got our sharing level right here. So we're going to double click. You get a drop-down box. And we'll also go ahead and save that as a level 2. Once you make that change, I don't know if you caught the little green bar up at the top. That's automatically saved as soon as you make that change. Okay?
Thanks.
Good question. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is a near tall edge estimation method?
It's just telling us how you determined that percentage, and it's either you can either do that from an aerial photograph while you're out in the field, or from a photograph and field base.
Sorry, it's the actual. I understand that there's different ways that you can measure that metric, but I don't understand what the metric itself is.
Is telling us how much of that unit is near an edge with tall vegetation, like trees.
Thank you.
It's also the 50 meters within or around the boundary of the survey unit. Up to 50 meters within the existing boundary, you're going to be estimating what percentage of that impoundment or that survey area is composed of that vegetation height. Trying to get an idea of the thermal cover around an individual survey unit.
So remember, these are all specified in the protocol manual, and also clicking on the little eye here. I don't know if you all can read that or not. Make it a little bigger.
Yeah, we can see that.
But when you click on that eye, it's enter the estimate of percentage of wetland within 50 meters of tall trees. Okay.
I have a question. For surveys that were already transferred into the database, is there a way to bulk, to change the data sharing level through like a bulk? Like you could just check on them, or do you have to go into each individual survey and do that?
That's an interesting question. We have already transferred all the historical data, and that excludes data from the last year, because we haven't done that transfer yet. So basically, from what would that be? July 2014 and before are already in the AKN, and I actually don't know a way to change the sharing levels on those, Linda.
Well, they should be, I don't know either, but they should be, and they probably were assigned some sharing level. I don't know what sharing level they would have gotten, but they would have been given a sharing level because they'd been made available for reporting purposes when we had our science coordinator and we were doing this through the Access database.
Yeah, I'm guessing that there's no way to bulk change those. but let us check with Point Blue and check on that, all right? I'm guessing that we will have to work with them directly, and you would have to tell us what you want them set to, and then I'm sure they can do it on their end. I just don't think there's an easy way to bulk change those from ours. From this interface.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's a great question that we hadn't even thought about. So I really appreciate that.
Sure.
Tom, can you speak to how you enter data where you might have manipulated or planted crops, cereal grains, milo? Does the database allow us to enter into those type of units?
In terms of the vegetation on a vegetation survey?
Yes.
John, do you know the answer to that question?
We talked about that a while ago. I thought we left those in the plant list, Z maize and sorghum and all the species that would be cereal grains. To tell you the truth, I haven't been in there recently, but if you could open up a veg data entry field, we go to the vegetation list and type in Z maize and see if corn's in there. And then you could use it just like any other plant. Maybe try common name, even though you did start out with scientific. Not sure if it's in there under common names either. It appears it may not be, but we could get those cereal grains added. That would be my correction or suggestion, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's an oversight on our part.
We had it in the very, very early days, maybe, when we started on this development, but through the 14 months it could have slipped through the cracks. But we can make that as a possible correction. So another very good question.
All right, management actions. So management actions, and John, I'm going to let you jump in here if I really mess this up since you were the lead of the management actions sub-team. The database allows you to call what we call management action plans, which are proposed management actions for a sampling unit. This requires that that you make a selection of proposed habitat manipulations, whether those be mechanical, chemical, prescribed fire. You give us you set a targeted range of dates for that action to occur, and how much of the sampling unit that units that you're planning to treat. And that's what's called a management action plan. After the time of those management action plans elapse, we allow you to come back in and actually report and tell us what you actually did. It helps you track your accomplishments. We use it in some of the more advanced decision support applications that we're working with individual projects to develop. It lets you report the actual dates when you did that action or that combination of actions, and lets you report your actual percent of area affected. And so then you can compare what you did to what you had proposed. And not having worked for the National Wildlife Refuge System, I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's my understanding that most of you all have habitat management plans that you're supposed to step down to the individual units. And I think it's our hope that this sort of mirrors that process and will allow you to track what you're proposing and what you actually do. And we actually let you retrieve these data so that you can actually incorporate these into your annual reporting back to your project leaders and on up to your regional office. Is that correct, John?
Yes, that's a Very good description.
So as I alluded to in these management action plans, you go in and you basically create a plan, give it a name, and then you have to actually select from a list of actions. John was the team lead for the group that came up with our predefined list. End users can't modify that. There is a core set of users that are IWMM staff, John included. We can go in and modify those if you find we've missed something that you use routinely in the field. But they're chemical actions, mechanical, prescribed fire, agricultural practices that you can select from. You have to do this on these are year-specific plans. You can report on plans after the end of the year, but you can't go back and create a plan after the fact. You can reuse these combinations of habitat manipulations in the future. So now let's go, and this is sort of what it looks like. We'll go to the actual database now and look at creating one of these plans. When you go to data entry management action, this is where you end up. Since I am able to administer or curate the management actions, I have an extra item down here that you will not have on your screen, so you'll just have these top 4 boxes. If we want to create a management action, we click Create Management Plan. We'll select a year, so we're going to do it for 2016 since we're almost through 2015. We'll do this for Area 10B, and we'll add that area in. Can add multiple areas to this management plan. And then we actually have to add select from a pre-existing prescription, or we can create a new prescription. And let me show you what that looks like. What are we going to do today, John? Disc and spray. You can add more detail here if you have several different ones, but they involve different chemicals or different disking intensities or whatever. Now we can create the prescription, and now we can actually add the actual actions to this prescription. So I said we were going to do an spray, so we'll do an aerial spray. What's a good time to do aerial spray in California?
Your guess is as good as mine.
All right, we're going to say April 1st, and we want to be done by the middle of the month, and we're going for at least 75% of the area to be sprayed, and we really want 100% sprayed, so we'll add that. And now we're going to add our disking, which should be under mechanical. And
do it a month later.
A month later, all right. So we'll do 5, and we'll say we'll be able to start that by the 5th day of the month, and we want to be done by the 30th. And we'll be happy if we get at least 50%, but we'd like to get 80%. All right, so now all we have to do, you could add other actions if there were other actions you were going to do. But let's say those were the 2 we're targeting. We come down here and we will create we're going to create a plan following this prescription. So I said before we were doing this for 2016. We're doing this on Area 10B, and now we're done. Okay. We can add additional units to this plan. We can also, from this point, report on this plan, which obviously we can't because we're not past 2016. and we can go back and review all of our plans at this point. So right here is the plan we just created. It's the third one down, this 2016 Disc and Spray, Area 10B. We can edit it. We can report on it. So we would come in and reporting. We would put the actual start day of when we did the spraying, when the spraying ended, and how much area was affected. Same for the disking. Okay. Get back here. You can also get to reporting on your management actions through this box. And now we have a special box out here, report without a plan. Okay. So if you end up, you're at the end of the year, you realize, oh, I didn't create my management action plan for this year. That's okay. You did some management actions on your units. You can actually go in and just tell us what you did through this. You select your unit. You select your action. And let's say maybe this was, easier to pick the EU. Don't want 2001. There we go.
Is your Chevy open? Is it unlocked?
Mm-hmm.
Is your Chevrolet unlocked? I'm going to install it for you.
So now we just reported that we planted corn in that. So you can report without creating a plan on what you did in a particular unit. Okay? We don't expect everybody to do these management action plans, but if you're really wanting the full decision support capabilities of IWMM, at some point you're going to have to go in and report on these. If you find this tool useful reporting on your habitat management plans for your station, then that's great too. All right, we already went over that. Questions on the management action plans? Okay. Downloading data, you're able, anything you enter into the database, you're able to get out. It's going to be saved as a CSV file, which is just a comma-separated text file. You can open that in Excel, bring it into Access, read it into R if you want to do statistical analyses on it. The important thing to remember is the data is not available immediately. When you go in, you enter data. So what we entered today for the December 8th visit won't be available until after two things happen. One, you've moved it to a minimum of a clean state. And two, Point Blue scripts have run that following night and actually moved it from that transactional database into the warehouse. Once it's in the warehouse, then you can come back in the next day and actually download those data if you so desire. So this is sort of what it looks like when you go into download data. Great. Never understand where it's going to ask me to download. So let's go to Downloads, Project Data. This is what it looks like. You choose whether you want to download bird survey data, vegetation survey, or management actions. Most of these look familiar, but some of these are changing. Then you select the project, so whatever project you want. select a single area, you can select all locations, you can select either all protocols or one protocol, and then you can filter by species. You are able to select specific species that you pick off of this pick list. You can use the Shift key to select continuous species, and then use the Control key just like you would in any other Windows program to select non-contiguous values. Or you can actually select a set of guilds that we've pre-identified, which you see here. So marsh birds, breeding, non-breeding, non-waterfowl, open water birds, shorebirds, waders, and then waterfowl. And you can also restrict by date range if you want. And then you just pick download. We'll do waterfowl and pick download to CSV. You get a CSV downloaded to your system that you can open in Excel. Okay. Same thing, works the same way for your vegetation data and also for your management action. All right. So we've already mentioned our reports, the reporting section on the database, on the application. It's there. It's not working correctly now. That should be fixed sometime in January, and that should be available between late January, early February. Watch for an announcement for us. Basically, going in, it'll let you do summaries of your bird count data. It'll let you calculate bird use days and migration curves, and also do some simple vegetation summaries. Just remember that all data with an AKN sharing level of at least 2 will be included in these reports. Any of the reports you generate can be exported as PDF so that you can include them in whatever reports that you need to give to your project leader or up to your regional office, or even included in presentations if you need to. And we have a few minutes for questions.